Hello, everybody. We are live. And this is Welcome to the Guys Drinking Tea podcast. And once again, we don't have just guys. So this is still a problem. And I have a confession. I've had multiple people come up to me and say, you've talked about renaming your show. You've joked about renaming your show. You still haven't renamed your show.
No.
I have.
And do they really know that this is tea today?
In all honesty, I'm just lazy. Like, it takes a lot of work to rename a podcast, turns out.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of functioning right now, and we still have the conversations, even though the name is not as helpful.
Right, because people drinking tea is just not got the same.
Not quite.
No.
So, but before we continue, I just want to welcome my guest. Since Alex is out, he's on a retreat this week.
Yep.
This is Andrea Jones. She's on staff here, and she's the top boss.
Nah.
I knew that she was going to
No.
react like that. So
No.
she is part of just a lot of the staff report to Andrea, and she helps our team sort of align and stay on the right course and get stuff done and all of these things.
All of the things.
All those things.
I like that. Other duties as assigned
Yeah.
and all
She
the
has
things.
So, all right. Do you even know, like, what's your title? It's like the weird... Sorry, is this... Yeah, this is too public to, like, tease your title?
No, I love teasing. I emphatically embrace the ability to laugh at the days and the moments and the times to come. So it's Director of Strategic Leadership and Development. Not development, fundraising development, but like development of
the team.
Of people on the team.
So, like, it's very descriptive, but it's also really long.
And everyone goes, huh? So what does that mean?
I say it means, and she's like, I get to do all sorts of things.
Yeah,
so
I do. I feel like
mystery.
anything could fall in there.
Yeah, and we do have tea, but
this was a deal.
Andrew's tea is almost blasphemous in this space. So tell us about your tea.
So my tea is herbal. It is decaf. I can't do caffeine. So I loved accepting coming on with you, but I was like, I can't do tea. And then, even green tea makes me sick to my stomach. So that's fun too.
Of course.
Yeah. But anyway, I've got passion tea, and it's really ruby red, and let's hope I don't spill it like other people have who've been on the podcast. And but it's wonderful and it's delicious and it's warm, and
so we had this debate. All right, well, let me actually tell you what our show is going to be about, and then we'll go back to the debate.
Sounds great.
And then we'll go back to content, hopefully that will be helpful. So today, if you've ever felt like you've listened to a sermon or you've talked to someone about, Christian things, and you're like, wow, that just felt like almost like guilt and shame and heaviness. Mm-hmm. Or like, oh, that sermon was so heavy. Then maybe today's conversation will help you navigate that a little bit. Because the book, we're in this series through 1 Corinthians, and there's a lot of heavy things going on, and Paul understands that. So we're going to talk a little bit about how does Paul approach and set up this sort of heavy book.
Yep.
And then we're also going to, was there other things we were going to?
Yeah,
on?
We'll get there.
Yeah,
but
a little bit of unity.
I think it was that managing that tension and how you sit in that, and when you're feeling that, and then our response to that. And so I think that's where it can get interesting.
Totally.
I actually had more questions, so I may be just asking you lots of questions today.
I didn't preach. So Alex preached the message. He also played Jaws on the cello.
Yes,
live.
he did.
So if you didn't see that, you're missing out.
It's pretty amazing.
Our lead pastor played Jaws on the cello. So go check that out. Let's dive in. We can be done talking about tea, I guess.
Yeah. It's just the bottom line is no caffeine for me after 10 in the morning.
I get it. I guess we'll give you a pass.
Sorry.
Even though, so I've got PG tips, so at least there's some redeeming tea in the room.
There you go. You're good to go.
All right. So Alex preached he kicked off the series.
Yep.
And starting in 1 Corinthians. So actually, I'm going to pull this up here, and I've got my cell phone is dead, which is normally my controller for this. So I'm like looking on a microscopic screen way far away.
There we go.
So we have 1 Corinthians and the beginning of this book. So Alex explained on Sunday that almost the entire book is Paul just like almost reaming this church.
Yeah, it's like a hard conversation.
You're screwing this up. This is off. This is dangerous. This is a problem. This is going on. And so maybe that, like we talked about at the beginning, that feeling of, well, this is a heavy, hard conversation. You were telling me about, like, you've been trying to read this book and you just keep getting stuck at a spot. So talk about, because I think there's a relationship between how Paul sets this up and what you were talking about.
Yeah. So I've been, of course, reading 1 Corinthians. And in the first, 9 verses, Paul does this great job of saying, hey, guys, there's some realities if you say you're walking in the way of Jesus. If you are a believer, he would say, if you're in the way, that there's these realities that you can embrace and that are true for you. And what happens is then he goes into this 13 chapters of the hard conversation, right? And that's what Alex started unpacking. He's like, man, this church was going through it. I mean, if there's a book that we could relate to, Corinth at this time, when Paul's writing this, it's like, what did he say? The Las Vegas, might even say the DC, a lot of politics, a lot of culture, a lot of business, and all, like, anything goes, sort of. Anything goes. And
what happens in Corinth stays in Corinth.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like the Las Vegas. Like, hey, if it happens there, it stays there. And then there's these people who are writing Paul and saying, this church you started, there's some interesting things going on. Like, they're calling out. And I think we have that today. We have that in the church. We'd be like, wait, you say this, you're living this way. You say that, you're living this way. And those are some interesting places and good conversations to have, for sure. But this reminds me of when you have to have a hard conversation with your kid and you're like, I need you to know, hey, sit down, Johnny, whatever. I need you to know, oh, I love you. You are always loved. You have a special place in this family. We will never stop loving you. You have, there are things about this family that are rights that you get. You get a room, you get to eat sometimes, you get, right? All those things. But you say all that, and then you know you're about to dive into, but we need to have a hard conversation because there's some things going on here that are not the way that we do life in this house. Maybe not the way we talk to each other. Maybe not the way that we walk alongside each other, esteem each other, encourage each other. And I think that Paul does that brilliantly. And we were talking about, like, which part came first.
We should, like,
was Paul like, because he was pretty passionate, which is why I'm drinking passion tea. No, but he was a pretty passionate guy. And he had zeal all up before then, like, right, he unpacked that. Yep. Alex unpacked that in the message. He's like, hey, he had this zeal. He was, like, hard pursuing the Christians, like, up until his incredible encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus. And so then you have this, like, okay, all right, you have this experience. He's a man of zeal. I just wonder, did he go into, like, the 13 hard chapters first and then kind of go, ooh, I better back out? And the context is that these are your realities. This is where I want to invite you to, and drop a pillar there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So let's look at some of those affirmations. So what I hear you saying is, like, he's about to have a hard conversation, like, in a lot of ways. This is a church plant with one of his, children, sort of things. Yes. It's a sort of, we call this the daddy talk, or, like, Allison's dad used to do these, she'd call them dad talks, where it's like, ooh, it's the lecture, dad lecture. That's what it is. Dad lecture.
Yeah. And your siblings going, ooh.
Yeah. And so I still do these too. It's both mom and dad lectures now. So he's about to do a dad lecture, but before he does, he wants to make sure that there's a foundation for that lecture to stand on. So we're going to look at some of these. So can you call some of them out? Can you read it? It's all the way across the room.
That's a stretch. Yeah, for sure. I would say the first thing, and the first thing that Alex dove into was that Jesus is central, right? That Jesus is central. But the underlying pin of all of this is that it's all about Jesus, that there isn't really anything that we get to boast in or take pride in, and that he is central. I'm actually gonna cheat because I was totally diving into this. So one of them, like just a few off the top. We don't have to go into all
Okay.
the ones. But these are some of the realities I believe Paul calls out here, right from the top down. Like Jesus Christ is central. Like if you miss this, I feel like we miss everything.
Yeah,
I
totally.
feel like that's like drop an anchor there and just sit in that. And I think it's so easy when we read scripture today, or when you're glazing over maybe a scripture that you've maybe read a whole bunch in your life, or you've never read scripture, that you can kind of glaze over the words instead of actually sitting in the profound reality that there's a centrality to following in the way of Jesus. And it's this relationship with Jesus Christ. And then he also talks about in this beginning season, like the name he uses that, and Alex unpacked that, Yahweh is this personal, right? It's this personal relationship. It's this personal, it's now not just high in the sky, God out there. It is, he's here with us. He walked with us. He talked with us and lives in us.
Yeah, I loved that idea that Alex brought out, that in the Old Testament, Moses asks to see God, and so Moses doesn't get his full request, right?
Right.
Because he said you can't handle that.
Yep.
But what Moses gets is he gets the name of God, and then Paul and the New Testament church, we get the face of God. So we actually get to see God because Jesus came and he was the express image of God. And so that's why that's where Paul starts. He's like, this, like, you don't, like, please don't miss the fact that the God of the universe, the creator of heaven and earth, the one that's so majestic that Moses couldn't even look upon his face, he made his face known to us. That's beautiful.
Love it.
So what's the next one?
Okay. And so then let's see, next one. And Alex started unpacking this too, for sure. This idea that Christians are sanctified. So
Sanctified right here.
Sanctified by Jesus Christ. And the verb tense there is past tense. Like there's some work that's been done. And then, so yes, we're sanctified, and there's this ongoing like progression. There's this expectation from Paul, like Jesus is central, you're sanctified, and inviting you to take steps deeper, further in your walk, that this is an ongoing process. It's not like, bing, you walk through a magic window or whatever that looks like, and you're done. I'm good. Like, I'm good. I can live how I want now. I can do what I need to do. He talks about this and unpacks it in Romans as well. But like, it's not like so that grace may abound, I get to have all these freedoms. It is like, no, deeper. Come with me deeper. And this invitation and this reminder to us who walk in the way of Jesus is, you're growing. There's an expectation of you're growing and you're continuing to grow.
Which comes back to probably one of my favorite moments in the message was we teased about Alex playing Jaws on the cello, but he illustrated this. And if you missed the illustration, even if you were in the room, like I get it. Sometimes you're listening to a sermon, you zone out and think about lunch or something. That can happen. As someone who preaches occasionally, it's like terrifying how often that can happen. But Alex talked about this piece of music. I think it's Bach, right?
Yes.
Cello.
Yes.
Shoot.
It's an amazing Bach cello piece. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
He's going to be so ashamed of me.
I know, both of us. He's going to be like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, we all know it. Like, we've all heard it a ton. But anyway, Alex is just more cultured than I am. So he talks about he believes in that piece of music.
Yeah.
Deeply believes that those notes are good and that they're in the right place at the right pitches and all of these types of things.
Beautiful.
And then he believes to his core in this piece of music, but then when he sits down to try and play it, he's like, all I got is Jaws.
Yeah.
I
don't even know that he got past the first dirt.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, he gave it the old college try for sure.
Exactly. So kind of like that's some of what you're talking about. There's this like this believing piece is that I believe in this piece of music. The way of Jesus, this sanctified, he has made us sanctified. He has put in us a belief, a faith that his way is right.
That's right.
And sometimes we don't know how to play the notes.
That's right.
I think that's...
So how do we do that? How does the person in the seat on Sunday morning, how do they do that? What does that look like? See, this is where I get to ask the questions. Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons why South Fellowship has the value of practice. So we talk about spiritual practices, and maybe if you've heard that term, or spiritual disciplines, if you've heard those terms before, you might instantly like think of them as more abstract ideas.
Yeah.
No, just take practice and take that word as literally as it can be taken.
That's right.
It literally takes practice to follow Jesus. So you hear a principle of the way of Jesus, and then you're like, all right, I got to practice this, just like you would have to practice an instrument. That means setting aside some time. That means finding a coach. That means, when you get better and better, one of the significant leaps for a musician is to go from playing alone to playing in a group.
Right.
That's a massive challenge as a musician to go to that next level, to be able to play coherently enough to not throw off a group of people or to genuinely add something to the music.
Right.
All of those things are steps in the practice process, and following Jesus is the same thing. So that's why we have a value of practice here, is because spiritual disciplines are just that. They're means and modes of helping us get better at actually living into the way of Jesus.
So what are some of those practices? You don't have to go through all of them, but like what are things that people, the person in the seat, the person watching, like
Yeah. So some of them, like maybe some of you could really quickly conjure a few of them. Praying, reading your Bible.
Yeah.
These are ones that, those two are probably the ones you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's going to help me.
The like check the box quiet time.
Yeah.
Right? The old quiet time, check the box kind of thing.
I don't, there are several lists of sort of different recommendations throughout the scriptures, but there is no comprehensive list in the scriptures of what the spiritual practices are. They're all over the place, and I think the exciting part is they're way more creative than you think.
Absolutely.
So practices could be Sabbath is a practice. That means just
Resting.
unplugging, and that could be a couple different kinds of Sabbath. You could rest from technology. You could rest from working for a day. That's more what we typically think of as Sabbath.
Sure.
You could you could do fasting as a practice, and you could fast in a dozen different ways.
Yeah.
You could fast from social media. You could fast from food itself. You could fast. Those are all practices, and I've heard of some really interesting creative ones where you're like, I'm feeling selfish these days, and so I want to remind my soul and my body and my spirit that I am not the boss of everything, and that I don't get my way. So what's a way you could do that?
We don't get our way. Yeah, no, I know.
Dallas Willard, I think, tells a story about this student of his, I think, that just chose his favorite kind of pizza was pepperoni pizza. And just to remind himself that my body doesn't get to decide everything, he says, I'm going to still eat pizza, but I'm not allowed to order pepperoni for this whole semester. And it was just every time he wanted pizza, he got something, but it was this little reminder, I would prefer it this way, but body, you're not the boss of me. The kingdom of God is the boss of me. And I'm going to self-sacrifice this little preference that I have. That's a spiritual practice.
Yep.
You have others that you think of?
I definitely in the morning walk. I do like somewhere between an hour and a half, depending on how early I get up. And every day is different. So some days I might listen to a podcast, or I might listen to a sermon. Typically not that. Typically music, so worship, and sometimes, though, lately it's been just I'm turning this off and repeating. And I didn't grow up this way. I know a lot of people grow up like repeating the Lord's Prayer and this repetition. And for me, I just said I've never done it, And I'm one of those people who's like, I've never done it, I want to try it.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to do this. I'm going to see how it speaks to me, and the repetition of over and over and over. And I would have moments, there's this trail like the Highline Canal that I go on, and I renamed it the Highline Community Covenant Trail, because it's so beautiful, and I run into people all the time from the church, from just our neighborhood. And I sometimes, it's embarrassing. I'll get into and I'll look behind me and I'm dancing and I'm listening to music and I'll kind of actually dance. And so I have to look behind me and I have to look ahead of me. I'm like, nobody's coming. Is it safe to just go for it? And but there is this sense of, and we talked about this with our staff Tuesday, of tuning my heart. I gotta in my head, it's like I gotta plug in, and I have to set my heart and the place and my mind and invite God to just set my heart, my mind, my soul. And each morning it's like, what is it I need today? What do you know that I need? And sometimes it is a word. Sometimes it is a stern word, depending on who I'm listening to. Yeah. Sometimes it's an encouraging word or an exhortation. Other times it's just worship. It's just worship music or just instrumentals. And then, like I said, lately I've been just repeating the Lord's Prayer and then unpacking my petitions and my pleadings from God in between each of the, stanzas there. Like, okay, I shall not want, I shall not want, I shall not want, I shall not want. What are the things I'm craving for? What are the things that I think I need? What are the things I need to give back? And he just completely, there's this transformation that feels like it's happening on the High Line, and then I get back showered up and ready to come into work. So,
totally.
But yeah, that's a different thing. But I definitely am connecting and practicing in nature. So the ocean, like bodies of water, the ocean, a raging river, a calm lake at any different level, they just that's one of the ways that I connect, not worshiping the created things, but the creator of those things.
Totally. Yeah. And so I think the Lord's Prayer has been one that's big for me.
Yep.
I like to think of the Lord's Prayer as like prayer concentrate. It's like,
yeah.
It's like this,
Ooh, I like that.
Concentrate, and then you add a little bit of your own prayer in the middle.
Yep.
And
That's it.
Sometimes.
That's it.
Yeah. So you just start with one phrase of the Lord's Prayer, and then you just expand it.
And you can go.
And then you pray maybe the next phrase,
Yep.
and you expand. Sometimes I don't even make it through the whole. Most of the time, I don't make it through the whole
know.
prayer. There's times I'll start in the middle because I've like 6 days in a row, I only made it through the first half, and I need to get to the second half.
That's the best. I know.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's
But maybe you needed to hang out in that for a while.
That's
right?
true. That's a great one. Disc golf is one for me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's a spiritual practice for me, and it's specifically about not being productive. It's about
letting go.
It's about wasting time.
Yeah.
That's why I play disc golf. It's because it's a waste of time.
That's amazing.
It's healthy in body. I could try and over spiritualize it. It's actually about, I go on a disc golf course. No one cares. I'm not winning any awards.
Yeah.
I literally am not moving the ball down the field in my family life. I'm not moving the ball down the field in my ministry life. I'm not moving the ball. It's just taking multiple hours and burning them up and then you're done with the round and you go, and the world is still spinning without me. Mm-hmm. God didn't need me to make the world keep spinning.
It's a beautiful reminder,
and so that's a reminder for my soul. It's also a great place that when I get angry at how I play, I have lots of conversation with Jesus. Why am I? There's something under the surface that I need to talk to you about. That somehow being bad at putting helps reveal for me. When when I know that I'm my soul is not at ease when I can't be at ease on a disc golf course because I'm angry. There's some other issue going on, and I do a lot of prayer there. So that's a spiritual practice for me.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I think mine, if I had to pick something super practical like that, mine would be cooking, not baking. I can bake, but I have to follow recipes. So I'm naturally wired no recipes. I like blank sheets, not fill in the blanks. Right. So I when I'm just getting to do my own thing, I just take these elements, and there's always onion and garlic at the bottom of it. And I tend to love soups and stews and dishes that are pretty forgiving, and you can make them go forever, and they turn into just something fantastic with all these different things added. But in that space, like this process of layering and developing flavors at different levels, and the creativity that you can have with all that God's provided, it's like it disconnects me from overthinking. It disconnects me from control.
It's a little bit of play.
I might have a problem with that. It disconnects me from, right? Some of these places that it's like, oh, and I just relax, and then the house smells amazing. And I'm like, this is just, thank you, God, for this time. And I do feel like I'm providing something for the people I love, but in a relaxed way. So I like on the weekend, I could make 2 meals on Saturday and 2 meals on Sunday, and then we eat on it all week. My daughter doesn't love that. She's like, "Are we gonna have minestrone again?" But hey, yeah,
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe to wrap up that question in a little bit of a neater bow for folks.
Yep.
If some really practical stuff around experimenting with spiritual practices, which I encourage you, experiment.
Yes.
Like some of them work for you, some of them won't. These are just like Jesus said something about Sabbath that I think is really helpful when it comes to spiritual practices. He said, man was not made for the Sabbath. Yes, the Sabbath was made for man. Like, so, and even when we're back to that whole conversation at the beginning of this about that heaviness that we're about to enter into in 1 Corinthians, or if you've heard a sermon or someone said, you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and you feel that guilt and shame, remember that the commands of Scripture and their invitations, they're things that are gifts from God to humanity to guide them into thriving in life. So same thing with spiritual practices. God made Sabbath because he knew we needed it, not because he's like, I have a list of things you've got to accomplish. Right. Make sure you take Sabbath. No, like we need to rest.
That was the Old Testament, right?
Totally.
The list of all the things and the laws. And we have like this entire story that's been documented, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
Yep.
And so then the answer is Jesus.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. So a couple other tips. We have one, experiment. Try a few on. Like, hear someone, ask them, like, what's something that really helps you connect with God? Try it for a couple days or a week or something, and then say, like, did that help me connect? And if it works, latch onto that and keep returning to it as a gift to you. And then another tip is there are, this might be a little bit more abstract. I'll fly through it really quickly because I don't want to get lost here. But there are sins of commission and sins of omission. And so what I mean by that, so that sins of things that I shouldn't do that I tend to do. Let's say overeat. That might be one that I tend to do. Whatever it is, like I get angry. It's a sin of commission. I shouldn't do that, but I do it. Then there's sins of omission. I probably should be doing something that I'm not. I probably should be more generous, and I'm not being generous. So if you can do a self-evaluation, say, where is my biggest struggle? You can then apply a discipline of abstinence or of action to counterbalance that challenge. So, for example, if you eat too much, then try a discipline of abstaining from something, a fast of some kind. And that strengthens the not doing muscle in your soul.
That's right.
And then if someone struggles with not doing something enough, then implement a spiritual discipline of action.
That's right. I'm gonna do
of
this.
Obedience, and that strengthens your taking actions soul muscle. And then it's kind of a fun game. You can actually sort of like diagnose and prescribe disciplines for challenges in your soul accordingly. So
yeah, and if you know, here's how you know. This is like, I was gonna say this is for free. But if you know that something
if you're
may be
paying
a challenge,
out there, by the way, where's that going?
I don't know. But when you think about it, do I have a challenge in an area? If a thing keeps coming up for you in your life, work and family and relationships, and that thing keeps coming up, it's a challenge.
That's the challenge.
Like, look in the mirror, guys. Like that, right? That's sometimes I'm like, I look in the mirror and I'm like, yeah, this is for you.
Yep.
Like, this is a challenge for you. So try to get honest with yourself. In that.
Totally.
Okay, so another
What
one.
else? All right.
I think this is, again, so Paul's saying Jesus is central, the sanctification you are, and it's ongoing. And then 3, that we're part of a body. We're part of this body together. We get to be a part of this church, this bigger church, not talking now just South, the local expression of church, but like we're a part of a body together. And how that means that we're in community. We get each other. We get to walk alongside each other. We're in community together. It's not, this thing isn't meant to be done alone. And so in that space, I think it just gets us out of ourself and out of self-sufficiency. And I think the church in Corinth was like walking in this place of self-sufficiency and getting it done on our own and doing it on our own and hustling and kissing babies and shaking hands and schmoozing and all of these things. And I think Paul's like reminder is, you're not just going out and doing it on your own. And so, because then it goes into like the people they were following, right? Like, do you follow Cephas, or is it Paul, or is it somebody else? Like, they just kept going. They just kept like, and there was these divisions that start to happen, right? And so that's, of course, when Alex began to talk about this invitation to unity.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's interesting that his first one is unity. Do you think that's important in the book? Is it strategic for Paul, or is he just like, he just got to start somewhere, so he just randomly picked unity? Or is that, do you think there's a strategy behind that in Paul?
I think that if it was me, I still can't figure out, did he do the first 9 verses and then dive in, or did he just go and start at verse 10 and then hit it? But I think there's something really strategic in that. Sometimes when there's problems that are happening, you kind of have to cut at a root of something that undergirds some of the other problems. And I do think, if it, it seems to me, let me say it that way, it seems to me fascinating that he attacks this unity piece, and then how they're so quick to look for celebrity or tie into a person or make a person, I follow, this person, you follow this person, I follow this person. And then he goes into talking about who he baptized and who he didn't. And then he's bringing it back again to like, that's why I don't even really focus on baptizing. It's just the gospel. It's the gospel. It is these true core pieces of what Jesus Christ did for you. Like, and when you accept that, it invites you then to respond to the world differently. And so I think it does. I think it really cuts. I mean, I have this visual of like this axe hacking at this root of something that is like deep down. If we can get at this, then we can start going into the next pieces, the outward reflection. But I think here he's uniquely focusing on this incredible need and this like following of people and the way and the culture and the who do you follow and who do you do and all of the things that were going on at the time. And we do it today. We still do it today. I read Tim Keller. I follow Beth Moore. I do Kay Arthur. And we want to put all these people, and it's beautiful. God's given us gifts in our teachers. He's given us gifts in leaders and musicians, and we can thank God for them and not worship them, but thank God for the way that he's gifted people in our lives.
What is it about being human that makes us gravitate towards following other people rather than following God?
That's a great question.
We might have to have.
That could be like the next week. I feel like we could hang out there for a long time.
Totally.
I think it just seems to be that right now we have validation if someone else says a thing. You ever like talk with someone and they're like explaining something to you, and like they feel it, but then they'll like say so-and-so says it and so-and-so says it and so-and-so says it, and you're like, so is this from you or is this from like, that's okay. Like, it's okay. We read people, we repeat them. There's beauty in finding it in all these places. But I do think we are just clamoring to get their thing right. I mean, when you look and you think about social media and you think about all the places that we want to be right, we want to have political power, we want to say this way is right, this way is not right, we need to, right? All the things like look good, feel good, be right, be smart, be in control. In all those places, we find and tie celebrity status and people that can help us look good, feel good, be right, be smart, be in control.
Yeah, and it seems like the modern, like the latest iteration of that tends to be around like crowd think. Like my ideas are true if lots of people buy into them.
Yeah.
By the way, that's just a complete logical fallacy. That's not how truth works.
No.
It's not like if a really popular celebrity and 6 of your friends say something's true, that's not like that's not the thing that evaluates whether something's true or not. But that is like the world we're living in right now.
Yep.
Is we want our ideas to be affirmed by the right combination of people, which is why we appeal to them as evidence for my view is correct because so-and-so who seems really smart, I've never checked in any of their perspectives, but they seem really smart, so they think it. And so I buy in. And then this celebrity who seems to have some really cool character, like they support nonprofits. Yeah. So they say it, then that's probably right. And then my friend believes it too. And this social Facebook group that I'm part of believes it.
I mean, do you think some of that is like also not knowing, okay, so in order to affirm truth here and look for the people that would agree with us, is that we don't know God's truth? That we maybe haven't spent some time investigating and reading and knowing, like,
I had this.
What does God actually say about this? And he probably, right? Like 4 times a year I read Proverbs because I feel like it's a Christian MBA, like relationships, business,
that's awesome.
Leadership, the whole thing.
Spiritual practice. There you go. Christian MBA. Just take it once a week, once a year.
Seriously. And so I sit in that and I as you're talking, I'm like, it's because I think we don't know truth. And I think there is also this place today and was in Corinth. Maybe there's no absolute truth. What if there's not an absolute truth?
Yeah. So, and I think he goes in, like he's about to go into this. We don't want to spill too much into next week.
Yeah.
But he talks about the foolishness of God and like, is God foolish for the way he decided to do all this stuff? And it's all these same questions. Like a lot of the ways of God seem counterintuitive and foolish, and because they're not part of the crowd and they're not what the masses are dialing into.
That's right.
I had this super interesting conversation with my daughter. Hopefully she can share this, but we were talking about, when she should or shouldn't get a phone or all those sorts of things. And she's like, oh, a lot of my friends already have one at this age and that sort of thing. And I said, oh, you know what, Piper? That's what's super interesting to me is as a follower of Jesus, when there's a lot of people doing something, it's actually for me one warning sign that that's not the thing to do. Like not always. Yeah. Like when there's a lot of people supporting, a crisis in Haiti or something.
Sure.
So it's not always. It's not a hard, fast rule. But when I start to see a lot of people doing something, it makes me think, well, they're just doing it because others are doing it.
That's right.
And then who knows what? They're not even asking the question, is it the right thing to do? They're just asking, what are I want to fit in. Yeah. So let's do that thing.
I need to look like everyone else.
And so,
how'd that go?
I think she's a smart kiddo. Yeah. She starts to pick up on it pretty quickly, and so we had a good conversation about it. And she was understanding that, and but it's like it's interesting how that was actually a knock against the evidence that she brought forth for me,
I was like, that's
and for the way of
not
Jesus.
Gonna win. That should be on the other side of your list.
That's right.
Yeah, So you can find me at any time.
That's right.
That's a better.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's start with a different piece of evidence.
I'll chat with her. I'm kidding.
Totally. You're gonna give her all this back. Let's build a stronger case.
Yeah.
Your dad
the version. I can download that, and I can get a Bible app, and I can. Oh yeah. Andrea, cut.
That's right. Don't do it. Don't do it.
That's amazing.
So, so we talked. So unity.
Yep.
We're at 40 minutes already.
Wow,
So
that was
time's
amazing.
flying. So
It goes.
he goes from, we started this conversation with this idea that sometimes there's heavy conversations, but Paul is wise and he decides to lay a foundation of you are God's, Christ is central.
Yes.
You have grace. You are sanctified, and I know that you're not already there yet, and this is a process.
And he's faithful and he's doing it. So those are a couple pieces. Like
Totally.
he's faithful, he's doing the work, he's gonna complete it. Like, and then he gifts you, which he gets to talk about when he starts talking about gifts later.
Yep.
There is some really precious nuggets later
Totally.
in the hard conversation. He pulls out these precious things. But it's like, I've enriched you. It says like, he's like, I've enriched you with all manner of gifts and encouragements and I sustain you. So these two words, like, if you follow in the way of Jesus, I've also enriched you. I've given you gifts and I will sustain you. And
Yeah.
I'm faithful to do this work. I mean, there is this sense at the end of these first 9 verses where it's like, there's nothing we can boast in.
Yeah.
Over and over, he's reminding us.
He sees massive potential in this church.
Yes.
Before he lays into them, he's like, I believe in who God can and is making you. I see so much potential in you. And actually, I think that that's such a great place for correction is otherwise, like if he's given up, if Paul's given up on the First Corinthians church, there's no reason to lay into them with hard words.
Right.
The only reason he's laying into them is because he sees something potential because of what God's doing in their lives.
Which now makes me wonder if the first 9 verses were for him. Like here, like, you know, like, cause like, let's get real. Like sometimes
I need to remember.
They're
God's.
They're God's.
Sanctified.
They're sanctified. Like kinda a little bit like,
totally.
Like he's got this and that he keeps this momentum and this like conviction too that, all right, I know you're working on them. I know you've got them. I know you see them. I know that you're in this. I know that you're for them. I know you've gifted them. Okay. Yeah.
Now we're ready.
Yeah.
All right. This might be opening Pandora's box because I don't think we have time for it. But I wanted to at least mention something that I saw in the text that's sort of like, Alex referenced it. Let me pull up the passage. We talked about, so he goes through that affirmation section, which is up here. Then he starts to lean in and say, you're struggling with unity.
Yep.
We talked about already our tendency as human beings to like gravitate towards other people or groups of people or groupthink. That's this whole Paul and Apollos thing.
Yep.
But then this sentence is so weird to me. And Alex references in passing. He says, now this I say, that every one of you, saith. Whoa. No wonder it's, what am I doing in the King James?
What version do you got there?
King James, here we go. All right, let's go back to this. Appeal. What I mean is this. One of you says, I follow Paul. Another says, I follow Apollos. And another follows Cephas. Fine. Okay, I'm tracking. We shouldn't be following those guys as primary. And still another says, I follow Christ.
Mm-hmm. Why was that a thing?
So in this context, that's a bad thing.
I think
what's going on there?
I think he's talking about, it seems to me he's talking about leadership some.
Okay.
And I could be totally wrong.
Okay.
Because I'm wrong a lot. I could be wrong. But it seems to me if you follow this track of I follow this leader and this leader and this leader, and then somehow saying I follow Christ, like to say that you follow Christ is wrong. I think that a lot of what was happening in these early stages of the church is establishing leadership and structures, some, like, I don't want to say processes, that's too much, but like, hey, here's how you guys can do this and bring order in your times together and some of that. And I think a little bit there was this, it feels like what could have been going on. It makes me wonder with this, like, we're going to do our own thing kind of, I got it. And okay, I know the truth and I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to have this relationship. I'm not going to be meeting with a body. I'm not going to be necessarily growing and like in proximity with other Jesus followers. I'm doing my own thing in my own way, all by myself. I just wonder if it has something to do with...
I don't listen to any teachers. I only listen to Jesus.
Yeah, like coming out. It's almost like it seems like because it's tied in with this Cephas and Paul and this kind of liturgy list, not liturgy, but this listing of leaders is like, it's the people who are like, oh, Jesus, 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 but they're not meeting together and they're not learning, they're not growing, and there doesn't seem to be any like leaning into some sort of authority that Paul does talk about. Like, what does it look like to come under and to be covered and protected by the authority of a body in its local expression around you,
Yeah.
to be a part of a bigger thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that there's probably some of that.
Yep. That means
in
I'm wrong.
general, it's like, no. I think we only have some hypotheticals that we can turn to in a lot of ways because we don't know all the details around it. But whatever it is, it seems like a little bit of a self-righteous statement.
Yes.
It's like, oh, those are all great teachers, but guess what? I follow Jesus. Like, it's the person who's like,
they do that and then they walk away.
Does that sound like the heart of Jesus?
And nobody can talk to them.
Yeah. Oh.
And nobody can approach them.
It's like the absolute shut up moment for the person who's like, oh, that's cool. You guys are having arguments over humans. Yeah. I'm so beyond that. I just follow Jesus. It's like this massive self-righteous statement.
Yeah.
Even though technically that's the right answer.
Yeah.
It's so self-righteous. There's a way of following Jesus.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the exhortation for our community. There is a way of being Christian and a way of following Jesus that is absolutely nothing like the way of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
It's self-righteous.
We might get it wrong. You're saying we might get it wrong.
We might get it wrong.
Yeah.
So I think what you said, I think could be definitely part of it. They're like, okay, you guys have your arguments. We're going to go over here. And we're when anyone else talks, we're going to be, nah. We only listen to the words of Jesus. No other teacher has any evidence.
Yep.
Science is irrelevant. Paul's irrelevant. Apollos is irrelevant. It's just me and Jesus, and that's it. And I'm disassociated with like whoever.
There's definitely arrogance and pride. It
Something.
sniffs of that. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
But then weirdly, Paul goes right into this argument why Jesus is the most important.
Yeah.
So there's something going on there. If you find a solution for us, put it in the comments below.
Are we going to unpack more of this week?
Yes.
So
we are. So
on Sunday.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Beautiful.
We're going to talk more about Jesus.
I'm trying to do a little teaser. So Sunday.
Little teaser.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to share from your heart to this community about this passage or these ideas?
Just I think it's probably I smiled when I heard that we were going into 1 Corinthians. It's just, we overuse the word relevant. It's so relevant. I mean, Paul's going to tackle everything from morality to systems to leadership to gifts to how we work together to relationships. And I just think it's so relevant to all of us for the last 100 years, probably for the next 100 years.
Totally.
In some way, shape, or form, that walking through this book is going to have so many opportunities for us to lean in and to wrestle with some things and to live in some tensions. And I love that even off the top, we can all go back because we talk about that a lot. Like some people are going to believe this way, and some people are going to believe the same way. And what's a tension? You say it all the time. Like, what's a tension to manage versus a problem to solve? Or be like, it's this way or the highway. And I think, at least at South, I think we invite people to say, like, there are some must-haves. There are some essential core faith pieces that the gospel isn't the gospel without these pieces. And there's these places where we've got people that fall on different sides of things, and we're doing life together, and we love each other, and we're committed to each other, and we are championing each other on and walking not from that arrogant, I got it all, and I'm here, but like, oh God, how do I walk in this place? How do I lean in? How do I support and esteem my neighbor?
Totally. It's almost like if your worldview or your theology is incompatible with unity with God's diverse, crazy, wild, broken church, then you're wrong. Like, that's almost what Paul's getting at. Like, unity is a great barometer of determining whether you're aligned right. Like, if you can't talk to other people because you're so uptight about some issue, then okay, that's a great warning sign that you need to maybe let go of some issue
Yep.
and try and find a way to be unified with his church again.
Yeah.
So
maybe you answered your own question on why he starts in with unity.
yeah, maybe inadvertently.
Ding, ding, ding,
Ding, ding, ding, ding. Oh, man alive, we are
so
like
fun.
Yeah, we went 50 minutes.
Sorry.
I'm not changing the title of the podcast, and I try and go 35. Never do. So these are empty promises.
So here's to guys drinking tea.
Oh, man.
All
right. Well, we love you all. Comment, like, share if this is helpful to you. And we will tune in next week, probably with Dan, maybe.
Oh, perfect. Oh, that'll be good.
All right.
Dan's a gem.